Salam guys, in light of Tesla's recent meteoric rise, I've been getting a lot of questions regarding the halalness of investing in Tesla. And although I've already put out a video stating that Tesla was my #1 halal stock pick, I think it's important to revisit the question of the halalness of a particular company every now and then. Because things change, revenues change, businesses change, and therefore the results of an evaluation of the halalness of investing in a particular company may change as well. Recently, Tesla put out its earnings report for Q4 of 2019, and I think that's a good point to start with evaluating the halalness of owning Tesla shares. Now, for those who are new to the channel, keep in mind my criteria for evaluating the halalness of a particular stock. The first criteria is that you should be able to describe the percentage of income that the company earns from non-halal sources compared to the percentage it earns from halal sources as being trivial, so a very small amount. Number two, you should ask yourself, is it clear to me that this company is producing a lot more good than harm? And number three, I like to ask myself, am I okay with publicizing my investment in this particular company? The Prophet, peace be upon him, says, wrongdoing is that which wavers in your soul and you hate for people to find out about. So I ask myself, am I okay with people finding out about my investment in this particular company? Now, I realize that these criteria are somewhat subjective, so if you want to learn more about why I use these particular criteria, then watch my video How to Pick Halal Stocks, link in the description to this video. It's also important to keep in mind that generally companies will fall on a spectrum between being absolutely halal and absolutely haram. So I try to grade the halalness of a particular company using a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being absolutely halal and 1 being absolutely haram. So an example of a haram company that would get a score of 1 is Budweiser, a company that produces alcoholic beverages. A company that may get the score of 10 is, I don't know, Rakan's free trips to Hajj and Umrah, just as an example. So let's start with my first criteria, which is where do the majority of the company's revenues come from, and can I describe the revenues that come from non-halal sources as being trivial compared to their overall revenue? So if we look at Tesla's most recent quarterly report, we see that their revenues are broken down as follows. 84% of their revenues come from automotive sales, 4% comes from automotive leasing, 5% comes from energy generation and storage, and 7% comes from something called services and other, and this includes revenue from vehicle repairs, sales of parts, and sales of used cars. So nothing in this breakdown of Tesla's revenues strikes me as being a haram source of revenue. Some common questions I get about Tesla is, what about their financing? What about their leasing? And then what about their debt? So let's start with the financing. When you apply for financing from Tesla, actually Tesla is not providing the loan itself. It directs your application to a bank that then provides you with the money. It's not actually a source of the funds that you use to finance a purchase from them. So when you're applying for financing from Tesla, you're not actually receiving the financing from Tesla, you're receiving the financing through Tesla. Tesla is referring your application to one of the banks that it works with, and then that bank provides you with the financing. So they don't actually have within their business model a source of revenue that is lending money and charging interest. By the way, as a side note, if you are looking for financing a Tesla or something else and you need halal financing and you live in the United States, then go to fundmebff.com and apply. It's free and it doesn't affect your credit score. The second comment I get about Tesla is, what about their leasing? Leasing is simply a long-term rental contract, and there's nothing wrong in Islam with renting an asset other than money, of course. In the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, renting was commonplace, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, never prohibited it. The issue arises when you have these lease-to-own arrangements where the renter has an obligation to buy the asset at the end of the lease. That's where the lease becomes indistinguishable from an interest-bearing loan, and that's perhaps the topic of a different video. But in Tesla's case, its leasing is not a lease-to-own arrangement wherein the renter has to buy the asset at the end of the lease agreement. It's simply a long-term rental contract, and I see nothing wrong with it. Now, the third comment I get about Tesla is, what about its debt? First off, let's make something absolutely clear, which is that any amount of interest-bearing debt is haram. The question arises when you have ownership in a company which you have no control over, and that company is using interest-bearing debt as part of its operations. Now, almost all commentators on this topic agree that designating every company that deals with interest-bearing debt in its operations as being haram to invest in would actually prevent Muslims from investing in pretty much any company, which would be, one, not practical, and number two, would be detrimental to the well-being of Muslims in general. As a result of this, some commentators have put some, what I think are arbitrary limits on the amount of debt that a particular company can have before it becomes haram to invest in. So some have said that if a company has a debt to market capitalization ratio that is greater than 30%, then it's haram to invest in. Some have said if that ratio is greater than 33%, then it's haram to invest in. And as I mentioned, these are arbitrary limits. They have no proof for them in either the Quran or the Sunnah or anywhere else. And by the way, market capitalization is simply the number of shares of a company times the price of those shares. And it's used as basically a metric to judge the size of the company. As I mentioned in my previous video, how to pick halal stocks, I really think that limiting the debt to market cap ratio to some arbitrary limit is the wrong approach. And it will often cause Muslims to basically only be able to buy a particular stock when it is expensive and not be able to buy it when it is cheap. So if you look at the example of Tesla, 9 months ago, it was trading for around $200 a share. Today, it's trading for around $750 a share. So 9 months ago, because market cap is basically the number of shares times the price of the share, the debt to market capitalization ratio may have been greater than the 30 or 33% arbitrary limit that has been advocated by some. And therefore, it would have been haram to invest in. Whereas today, now that the price of a share has gone up substantially, the market cap has gone up, and therefore the debt to market cap ratio has gone down significantly. So today, it's halal to invest in. So basically, it was haram to invest in when it was cheap, and now that it's a lot more expensive, it's halal to invest in. To me, this is counterproductive and it makes no sense whatsoever. What I advocate for instead is to put the debt level of the company in the context of what the company is doing. So for instance, if the company is curing cancer, then I'll be more tolerant of a higher level of debt. On the other hand, if the company is simply a video gaming company, then I will have very little tolerance for any debt on its books. So my advice to you is to use your best judgment when you're determining what amount of debt on a company's books will you tolerate. And this level should be informed by your answer to the next criteria that I have for determining whether a stock is halal or haram, and that is, what impact is this company having on humanity? Is it clearly positive? Or is it something that's not really necessary and you can't really tell if it's positive or negative? And I think in the case of Tesla, their impact is clearly positive as they are spearheading the transition of humanity to sustainable sources of energy. In fact, it is hard to think of any other company that has had a more positive impact on humanity than Tesla since Tesla's inception. As for my third criteria, which is, am I comfortable with publicizing my investment in Tesla? Yes, I am completely comfortable with doing so. So my overall score for the halalness of investing in Tesla is a 9.5 out of 10. I slashed half a point off of Tesla's halalness score because it does refer customers that ask for financing to other banks that provide that financing for those customers. So that's why I slashed half a point off of their halalness score. Again, if you live in the United States and you need halal funding, whether it's to buy a Tesla or something else, then go to fundmebff.com and apply for financing. If you liked anything in this video, then give it a like. subscribe for more content, and until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.